Hey everyone. Ready for a deep dive into something kind of mind-blowing?
I am.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking about this book, Pattern Breakers, by Mike Maples Jr. and Peter Ziebelman.
Yeah.
And it's all about how some startups completely flip the script on how business is done.
Interesting.
It's fascinating stuff, especially because, we humans, we tend to like what's familiar.
Right, we love our patterns.
Yeah, exactly. We like our routines and patterns. And this book really challenges us to rethink all that.
Makes sense.
And it shows how real innovation, like the really big breakthroughs,
Yeah,
sometimes often come from the people who are willing to break the mold, to do things differently.
definitely. And what's cool is that the authors have this like insider's perspective on all of this.
Oh, how so?
Well, Mike Maples Jr., he's a venture capitalist who's backed some huge companies like Twitter and Twitch. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Peter Ziebelman, he's an entrepreneur and investor too. So they've seen firsthand how these pattern-breaking companies actually emerge and succeed. They know what it takes.
That's so cool. So they don't just talk about these companies, they actually break down the how-to for the rest of us.
Exactly.
I love that. That makes me really curious about what actually makes a startup a pattern breaker in the first place. I mean, it can't just be about making a slightly better version of something that already exists, right?
You're totally right. It's
Yeah.
got to be way more than just like a small improvement.
Right.
It's about what they call inflections. These moments when technology or society kind of shifts,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
creates these like massive opportunities for change.
So they're kind of like, what, surfers waiting for the perfect wave?
Yeah, exactly. Like think about Airbnb.
Okay.
Before Airbnb, did you ever think you'd stay in a stranger's house?
No way.
I know, right? But they saw this shift, this inflection point, where people wanted more authentic travel experiences, and bam, they created this whole new market.
It's crazy how they took that initial fear, like who would stay in a stranger's house, and turned it into something people actually wanted.
It's pretty genius.
And I remember reading somewhere that Mike Maples Jr. almost missed out on investing in Airbnb because, get this, the founder showed up with cereal boxes instead of a proper pitch deck.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they were literally selling cereal to stay afloat.
Oh,
But it was that kind of scrappy outside the box approach that caught his attention.
that's hilarious.
It really shows how they weren't afraid to break the mold, even when it came to something as traditional as fundraising.
Totally.
But okay, how do these companies actually find these inflections that set them apart? Like, do they just lock themselves in a room and brainstorm until something brilliant pops up?
Well, actually, the book kind of argues against that, the isolated brainstorming thing.
Interesting.
They talk about living in the future. It's like immersing yourself in emerging technologies and seeing how they can solve problems before those problems even become obvious to everyone else.
Oh, okay. So it's not about predicting the future. It's more about understanding these emerging trends
Yeah,
and
exactly.
seeing the potential they hold.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and they have this great example in the book, this company called Living Carbon.
Oh, I've heard of them. What do they do?
So they're using genetic engineering to create like super trees, trees that absorb more carbon from the atmosphere.
Oh, that's wild.
That's like a futuristic solution to this, very current problem we have.
Yeah, climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really shows what's possible when you have that forward-thinking approach.
So cool. But okay, let's say I'm listening to this and I have an idea that I think could be a pattern breaker.
Right.
What's the next step? How do I know if it's worth actually pursuing?
Okay, so the book really stresses the importance of what they call an implementation prototype,
Okay.
which is basically, it's not your final product, but it's like a bare bones version designed to test your core hypothesis.
Oh.
So it's to answer the question, like, are people actually desperate for what you're offering?
So it's like validating your idea before you go all in.
Exactly.
It's like, it reminds me of Chegg, the textbook rental company.
Oh, yeah, right.
Their early implementation prototype was this super basic website. Like, it wasn't fancy or anything, but it let them prove that students would actually pay to rent textbooks.
And then from there, boom, they built the whole platform.
It's so smart. Like, dip your toes in the water before you jump in head first.
Exactly. It reduces the risk and helps you avoid wasting a ton of time and money
Makes sense.
on something people might not even want.
Right, exactly. And I bet that validation helps you attract the right people to your mission, too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because even the best idea needs a team, right? Definitely.
Building a team is crucial.
A group of people who are passionate and believe in what you're doing.
That's what Pattern Breakers calls co-conspirators.
Co-conspirators. Okay, I like that. What makes them different from just like regular team members?
Well, they're not just people with the right skills or experience. They're the people who buy into your vision,
Oh, okay.
who are excited about the potential just as much as you are.
So they're like your partners in crime, the people you can bounce ideas off of who will challenge you and help you grow your idea.
Yeah, exactly. They're the ones who are up for the adventure, even when the destination isn't totally clear yet.
I love that. That shared sense of purpose and adventure.
And one thing the book mentions it's really important is having a super builder on your team.
A super builder. Okay, now I have to know more about that. What is that?
So a super builder is someone who can adapt and build, well, pretty much whatever's needed
Oh, wow.
as the company grows and changes. They're great at problem solving, even when they've never faced that problem before.
So they're kind of like the MacGyver of the startup world.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
The book talks about Nate Blacharczyk, one of the co-founders of Airbnb.
Okay.
Investors initially overlooked him, but he ended up being like super crucial to Airbnb's success.
Really, what did he do?
Well, for one thing, he figured out how to integrate Airbnb listings onto Craigslist, even though there wasn't an official way to do it.
Oh, wow. That's resourceful.
It is, and that's the super builder mentality, right?
Yeah,
Finding a solution even when the tools don't exist yet.
that's awesome. So, okay, we've got our game-changing insight. We've validated our idea with an implementation prototype, and we've assembled our team of co-conspirators, including a super builder. What happens next? How do we take all that and turn it into a full-blown movement?
That is the question, isn't it? And that's where things get really, really exciting. You know what's interesting about this book is that they don't shy away from the challenges of being a pattern breaker.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right. It's like they're saying, hey, if you want to do something truly revolutionary, you got to be prepared to face some resistance.
Make some enemies along the way.
Exactly. Not everyone's going to be on board with your vision, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's because, well, people are generally comfortable with the way things are.
The status.
Exactly. Change can be scary for some people.
So when you come in and try to shake things up, well, you're bound to ruffle some feathers.
It makes me think of that quote, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself.
I like that.
Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man.
Oh, yeah, that's George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah.
And that's so true, right?
It totally captures that pattern breaker spirit.
They see a different future, one that maybe other people don't even get.
Yeah, and they're willing to fight for it.
Even when it means going against the grain, even when it's hard.
It's like Galileo, right?
Oh, yeah.
When he said the Earth revolves around the sun, everyone thought he was crazy.
He was basically a heretic.
Right. And they punished him for it.
It took a long time for people to accept his ideas.
Exactly. So it reminds us that challenging the status quo can come with a price. But
sometimes it's worth it.
yeah. And that ties back into the book's advice on positive disagreeableness. It's not about being disagreeable just for the sake of it,
It's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in.
even when it's unpopular.
Exactly. And the authors really stress the importance of saying no.
No to what?
No to distractions, to requests that would compromise your vision, to pressure to conform.
So setting boundaries, basically.
Yeah, you could say
Staying focused on the bigger picture.
they use the example of Okta, this company that provides access to cloud apps.
Okay.
Early on, some customers wanted them to integrate with like older applications.
Oh,
It
okay.
would have been easy money, you know.
Right.
But-
It would taken them away from their main goal, right?
Exactly. They were focused on the future of cloud computing,
Yeah.
and that meant saying no sometimes,
Even when it was tough.
even when it meant potentially losing customers.
So that's a great example of how saying no can be a powerful tool.
For pattern breakers.
Yeah, to stay focused on their vision.
And that ties into the idea of differentiation.
Oh, how so?
The book really emphasizes that pattern-breaking companies, they don't just make a slightly better version of what's already out there.
Okay.
They force a choice, not a comparison.
So it's like they create something so unique that it's in a category of its own.
Right, exactly. Like when Apple launched the iPhone,
Okay.
it wasn't just another smartphone. It was something completely new.
They didn't even compare it to other phones.
They were like, this is the iPhone, take it or leave it.
And people took it, obviously.
Yeah, because it was different.
It offered something you couldn't get anywhere else.
And that brings us back to the breakthrough language.
Oh, Right, how you talk about your idea.
Yeah, it's not just what you build, but how you communicate its value.
You need to frame it in a way that breaks free from those existing
Like
perceptions.
ride sharing.
Okay.
That created a whole new way of thinking about transportation.
Yeah, it's more than just a taxi.
It's about community, sustainability.
It's a movement, right?
Exactly.
But I remember the book also talks about people who, like, have the language but not the substance.
Oh, yeah, the pseudo-visionary.
Yeah. They might sound convincing, but they're more about hype than real change.
They're all sizzle, no steak.
It's like that Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos situation.
Oh, yeah, good example.
She convinced a lot of people she was a visionary.
But it turned out there was nothing to back it up.
It was all smoke and mirror.
It's a good reminder that we need to be discerning.
How can we tell the real pattern breakers from the fakes?
Look for people who are humble, who admit they don't have all the answers,
Okay.
who are genuinely trying to solve problems, not just achieve fame.
So look beyond the flashy presentations and focus on the substance of their ideas.
Yeah. Find the people who are building something truly different, something that challenges the way we think.
Something that, like we said, forces a choice, not a comparison.
And it's not just startups, by the way.
Oh, right. The book talks about how big companies can be pattern breakers, too.
They use the example of Skunkworks, that division of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, the ones who made the SR-71 Blackbird.
They were this small, independent team, and they were given a lot of freedom to experiment.
And because of that, they came up with some incredible innovations.
It shows that pattern breaking can happen anywhere as long as the environment is right.
So it's not about the size of the company, it's about the culture.
And the mindset.
Yeah. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a corporate innovator, or just someone with a great idea,
The principles in pattern breakers can apply to you.
it's about being curious, questioning things, embracing the unknown.
And realizing that true innovation often lies outside of our comfort zones.
As we wrap up our deep dive into pattern breakers, I'm still thinking about that title, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, right?
It is breaking patterns. It's like such a strong image, like shattering these norms.
Creating something totally new.
Exactly. And they really hit on how, like, ingrained those patterns are and how we think.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, we crave that order, that predictability.
It's human nature.
But then they go on to say that real progress, like real innovation that often comes from, like, defying those patterns.
The people who are willing to go against the grain.
Right. It's like that story about Clarence Birdseye they talk about in the book.
Oh, yeah, the frozen food guy.
Yeah. He didn't just invent frozen food. He had to create, like, a whole new system around it.
He had to convince the railroads to have freezer cars.
The grocery stores to get freezers, right?
Crazy.
Totally. He changed how we produce, distribute, and consume food.
That takes serious vision.
And a lot of that positive disagreeableness we talked about,
Definitely.
because he had to convince everyone that his way was better. Even when they were like, frozen food, no way.
Now look at us.
We all have freezers. It makes you think about how many other great ideas are out there just waiting for someone to, like, champion them.
That's a good point.
And they make this point about how we're often conditioned to think in ways that, like, limit our own potential for being pattern breakers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, we're rewarded for following the rules, getting the right answer.
Fitting in.
Right. And it makes me wonder if that actually stifles creativity and innovation.
Pattern breakers definitely challenges us to rethink that.
To embrace a different mindset.
One of curiosity, experimentation.
Questioning assumptions.
Exactly.
So it's like being okay with not knowing all the answers.
And being open to new possibilities.
Yeah. And maybe even failing sometimes.
Because those failures can be valuable learning experiences.
That's where the implementation prototype comes in, right?
Exactly.
Get your idea out there, test it, see how people react, and then adjust based on that feedback.
It's a constant cycle of learning and improving.
It's like finding that sweet spot where your idea really connects with people.
It's a powerful approach.
You know, as we come to the end of this, I can't stop thinking about that story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Oh, yeah, the one they mentioned in the conclusion.
Yeah, it's such a perfect analogy, you know?
It is. He was that seagull who wanted to fly higher and faster than anyone thought possible.
And he was ridiculed for it.
But he didn't give up.
He kept pushing himself.
And he proved everyone wrong.
It shows that we all have that potential to be pattern breakers.
To challenge our own limits, to think differently.
And it takes courage, right?
It does. And a willingness to embrace the unknown.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this question.
What limiting beliefs are holding you back?
Yeah, what patterns are you clinging to that might be stopping you from achieving something amazing?
What if you challenge those patterns?
What if you embraced that positive disagreeableness and lived in the future?
What could you create?
What impact could you have on the world? This deep dive has given us so much to think about, and we hope it's inspired you to break free from limitations and to create something truly extraordinary.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep pushing those boundaries, keep questioning those assumptions, and keep striving to create a better, more innovative future.